AUT's been around for a long time, and has been through a ton of changes, but what about the abilities that haven't received that treatment? There's a handful of movesets that haven't received reworks in a real long time, and I think it's time someone shed some light on them. For reference, this series will focus on abilities that 1. Have been in game for more than 2 years, and 2. Have not received any major reworks in that time. The definition of major rework will range a little, though. I won't count the addition or removal of inconsequential moves, but if you give Casey a beatdown, that's a rework to me, since it changes how you play significantly. These abilities range from underrated powerhouses to underpowered pushovers, and it's my job to tell you which is which, along with a little history lesson. That being said, people all over the world join hands because today's episode is D4C Love Train. Love Train is an evolution of D4C, though it is currently an objective downgrade in almost every way because of how busted the D4C rework is, but that's for another video. It can be obtained by using the Saint's Corpse on D4C, which you can get a couple different ways. One route involves doing the quest given by Funny Valentine on the cliff above the field, requiring the player to accrue 500,000 U-coins, collect and use the various corpse parts on D4C, and then defeat the Diavolo boss that spawns at the Coliseum. The other route is gathering the required Love Train shards from the gacha and crafting the corpse from the menu, which is significantly faster provided he's on the banner. This moveset is based on the stand of Funny Valentine in the D4C and Ballbreaker arcs of Steel Ball Run. The pose music is the song that serves as the namesake of the stand, Love Train by the OJs. With your standoff M1s, you slash forward with your knife. We'll get to that. It's a usual M1 chain, and it serves as a decent poke and combo finisher. The third one is Truant to Chop Strike. E is Hand of Fortune, which has you sending out your stand in a straight line similar to Killer's Hand on base D4C, except instead of being a grab, it stuns and does a fair bit of damage. R is Throat Incision. You swipe forward with your knife, we'll get to that, and stab the enemy in the neck. This is a grab and does a good bit of damage, but the initial hit only does 2, so trying to use this against people with armor will usually result in disappointment and a big punish. T is Head Bomb. You throw out a slow-moving homing bomb at whoever your cursor was hovering over. This move is very easy to counter, provided you can see it. Why would I specify that? Well, because if you're using this move against an enemy using a skin that changes their player model, the head is completely invisible. Tragically, I don't feel bad. Most of those skins look stupid anyway. Y is Chop Strike. You cleave downward with your stand quickly, stunning for quite a while and doing decent damage. Being true out of M1s, it's a great combo extender. G is Fanfire Disposal. You fire off 6 shots, each dealing a tiny bit of damage. Each shot is supposed to be true into the next, but you'll more often than not get lag spikes that make that not the case. Holding G instead will give you Precision Disposal. You fire off 1 powerful shot, doing good damage and ignoring block. This move can be parried though, so I wouldn't recommend using it against good players. And as with most of the stand-based movesets, Q is your stand toggle. Your stand on M1s are functionally identical to the standoff M1s, with one funny detail. I'm pretty sure the 4th and final M1 shares an animation with the Rib Crusher move from D4C's old moveset. E is Body Carving. Your stand swipes forward 3 times before sending the enemy back. This is true out of a few moves and combos into M1s, so it's pretty good as a finisher. R is Spilling of Blood. Your stand reaches out and impales the enemy before letting them go. This is your combo starter since it's got armor and is actually able to confirm things. Holding R instead will give you Severing Chokehold. Your stand charges forward and slams the enemy into the ground a few times before throwing them. This move is supposed to be a combo finisher, I think, but it does the same damage as M1, so it's not really worth using. T is Presidential Leverage. You crouch behind your stand and charge forward in a turnable dash. Anyone in the path will take some damage and be ragdolled if they don't block it, making it a great chip tool provided the enemy can't parry it. Y is State Funeral. Your stand cleaves downward similarly to Chop Strike, with one major difference. This move has a ton of end lag. Using this raw is a recipe for getting punished hard. H is Gut Gouge. Your stand sticks out both hands and impels the target before sending them flying backward. It's mainly used as a get-off-me tool since it has armor and sends the enemy quite far away. V is Love Train, the namesake of the moveset, and it's not even worth using the majority of the time. For your entire meter, you can toggle Gold Experience's Frog Reflection for a shorter period of time. Using certain moves will temporarily pause the effect, allowing you to sort of balance offense and defense to extend the duration, but like I said, it's just not important enough to prioritize. Obviously, it's good against high wind-up nukes and time stops, but that means you can't be tossing head bombs as often as you otherwise could. It's also worth noting that you still have access to Fanfire and Precision Disposal while in stand-on mode. And stand off, 3 M1s into Chop Strike into Hand of Fortune back into M1s is a true but very tight combo. The much safer option is to ditch Hand of Fortune entirely and opt for Throat Incision instead, even though it does less damage, because there's no chance of ping messing with your M1 chain and leading to you getting punished. The reason for using Throat Incision here instead of M1s is because the Chop Strike animation is not long enough for your M1 chain to have reset, meaning you just do the 4th hit of the initial chain. In stand on, you should be throwing out Presidential Leverage against bad players whenever it's off cooldown, since it's a fairly low commitment source of damage if they don't parry parry it. In terms of combos, if you manage to punish the enemy with spilling of blood, that move is turned to State Funeral, which you can then finish off with body carving into M1s. Unfortunately, this is risky because sometimes body carving sends the enemy a bit too far or not at all, so catching them with M1s while they're still stunned is a bit tricky. You have to be prepared for the enemy to move forward, but also be ready to stay where you are in case they don't. Gut Gouge is another option for combo finishing, which I thought was true for the longest time, but apparently wasn't. Instead, that move should be used for winning armor trades or getting chip damage if you know you're about to eat a big hit. It does 40 damage regardless of whether or not the enemy is armored, making it somewhat like a heavy punch. Presidential Leverage also moves fast enough to land off of Gut Gouge, but it isn't true, so I don't recommend it. Instead, you can use the straight flight path that Gut Gouge sends the enemy on to easily land your projectiles. Unlike base D4C, the guns have a good bit of wind-up, a whole lot more end lag, and a slower travel speed, so it isn't nearly as reliable. I wouldn't recommend throwing them out unless the enemy is much too far to punish, or you'll usually end up eating a bunch of damage for trying. Severing Chokehold unfortunately lacks the utility to be something that you cycle in your regular moveset unless you're intentionally gimping yourself, which is interesting because it seems like it would be the preferred combo finisher if it didn't do so little damage, doing the same as a string of M1s. Considering the impending rework of this moveset, I'm sure this is an absolutely crucial section, but I will write it nonetheless. Usually, just beating the Love Train in neutral is enough to shut them down a majority of the match. Focusing on heavy armored moves will prevent them from ever using their combo starters, since all of them are grabs or have single hitboxes. Its lack of multi-hit moves prevents it from being able to punish armor, unfortunately. It also lacks the counter D4C has, meaning it can't deal with homing moves or the large sweeping hitboxes of power crept abilities like Sorcerer, Killer, and Umbra nearly as well as something like King Crimson or Sans can. Because of his slow projectile speeds and easy to punish range options, zoning him out can also be very effective. In all honesty, Love Train is not that difficult to deal with when compared to the powerhouses of modern AUT. All the way back in the year 2021, ultra-rapid-fire players would be interested to find that one of the random stands they could get at the start of the round was something they had never seen before. An ability that wasn't just unobtainable in main game, but almost entirely unfinished. D4C Love Train was technically in the game, with only one move, and that was Love Train. On release, it was more of a passive feature like Whitesnake's discs than what it is today, with a unique meter UI on the left side of the screen that would charge up by doing damage. Once it was filled completely, you could use the Love Train move to activate the barrier and switch to defense mode. Using any of the disallowed moves would switch you back to attack mode, and it would then function like it does today, just draining much slower. Oh, and at some point, Chop Strike was also called State Funeral, meaning you had two moves with the same name. There was also apparently a plan to give it the base D4C counter. Past that, Love Train is extremely similar to how it was at launch functionality-wise. Balance-wise, it kinda got thrashed by the combat update along with its pre-evolution. As unfortunate as that is, it isn't horrible to play. Aside from the jank of having its numbers adjusted so much over the course of the last few years, it still firmly has its place in today's ecosystem. At least, that's what I would say if it wasn't about to get reworked. Currently, it holds this position, but it's only a matter of time until Love Train can no longer be considered a classic of AUT. Love Train is one of 6 abilities that were added or reworked in the summer update, what I will always consider the absolute peak of this game. Because of that, I've kinda got a bit of an attachment to it, along with the others like Whitesnake and Anshen that will probably get their own episodes in the future. I think AUT's Love Train is an incredible adaptation of Funny Valentine's brutal and desperate fighting style on the coast of Philadelphia, slinging gore in parts everywhere with no remorse. It references a handful of panels and actual things Valentine does as well. Except for one thing. Finally getting around to it, the knife. I have reread every panel featuring Funny Valentine, and there is not a single one featuring him holding something akin to a knife once. The closest thing he gets to holding a sharp object in a threatening way is the razor he shaves with in its introduction. So why is so much of his moveset dedicated to this weapon he never wields to the point where it's even his M1s? And why is it so much worse in the base D4C rework? More than half of the moves on D4C use this knife that does not exist, which takes away from the potential manga references or generally unique and interesting applications of the stand. Throat incision in particular makes even less sense, because that happens to him! He gets his throat pierced by Lucy with a knife and nearly dies. That's like if they released Gojo without any moves related to Red and just made them him stabbing people with the sword he got killed by. D4C has no attacks that involve the clones actually fighting, like Suna's Desert Doppelganger. No heals where you trade off the stand to a healthier self. No relocation with the dimension hopping, barring one of the worst design moves I've ever seen. And it's not like it's lacking pages. D4C spends more time in combat than the world, and that got a perfectly fine moveset. Sorry, this is a review for Love Train, not D4C. Back on topic, Love Train is great. It's a real shame it's going to be reworked, likely into something as power crept as D4C, if not worse. But hey, the world keeps turning, what can you do? A whole lot of nothing. Oh, before I go, I'd like to make y'all aware of a Q&A I'm hosting as a celebration of my 1,000 subscriber milestone. It'll be added as a segment to my 1K special, so if you're interested in being in one of these videos, now's your chance. If you're interested in participating, you can either comment on this video or this YouTube post. Feel free to ask me anything within reason, obviously. Alright, I'm gonna go now, see ya. Hey, but seriously, why does Dimension Hop slow you down that much? It just turns the fight into a slog of an armor battle. It's one of the dumbest things I've ever seen added to this game, and nukes exist. I can't believe I missed a century of it for this.